Are we ready to see silver and gold go mainstream, where everybody's talking about it? And what would that do for the price of silver, for the price of gold, for the price of platinum? What is going on out there right now? Looming crisis. This is not good, guys, what we're looking at. And how can these looming crises, I don't know the plural of crises anyway, how can they play into supporting rocket ship level prices for the precious metals? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what went on yesterday in the silver market and what that could mean as we head into the end of the year. We're also going to talk about the U.S. debt clock and the debt situation. That's a major, major impact. And it's not just us that are talking about it. We've got one of the world's leading financial experts issuing a dire warning about what the United States could be headed for. We're going to talk about the Fed, right? A lot got digested this last week regarding the Fed, and the Fed has more impact, more sway over the silver price and gold price than anybody else. The old Wizard of Oz. We don't like the Fed. We're not necessarily in favor of the Fed, but the Fed does have a big, big impact on the metals prices, so we got to talk about that. We got a government shutdown. What does that mean? We've got a major labor union on strike. What does that mean? And what about gold and silver going mainstream? We're going to pull it all together with even more evidence that, yes, we could be right on the cusp. This could be the canary in the coal mine right now regarding gold and silver going mainstream. So what does this mean yesterday? What went on in the silver market? Guys, it was the craziest day on record for silver. That's what many of the top analysts are saying. But what does it mean and what caused it? Let's look at one fascinating subject on this when it comes to silver yesterday in this move. Silver, in the matter of like an hour and a half, it was up 4 or 5% and then crashed by 6%. Crashed by, I think, $1.40 was the final figure from top to bottom, maybe even more. It was insane what happened to silver yesterday. But think about this. I want you to shift gears. We're still talking about silver, but what does it mean when the entire silver mining industry, all the silver that's ever produced in the whole course of a year, totals 850 million ounces? That's how much silver comes from all mining activity all around the world. 850 million ounces. Do you know how many electronic versions, ounces, how many electronic ounces were traded yesterday on the COMEX, which we also like to refer to as the CRIMEX? Remember, mining activities create or dig up 850 million ounces per year. Yesterday alone on the CRIMEX, we had 550 million ounces of electronic silver that traded hands. That's darn near just shy of 2/3 of the year's annual physical mining output. So when silver got absolutely clobbered yesterday, it got absolutely clobbered, but only on an electronic basis. That's so key to understand, right? It wasn't physical metal. That would be 2/3 of the year's mining output. It was all electronic. And what do we know about the COMEX? Right? What do we know recently? JP Morgan Chase, two of their precious metals traders, were accused and convicted of price manipulation. So what happened yesterday on the CRIMEX was probably some form of manipulation. We have never seen anything like that before. It's absolutely crazy. Some other people, I've received some high-level emails from several of the, let's say, insiders that watch Ron's Basement. One person told me he had it on very good word that there were several very large investment funds that had had massive losses in bonds. because we know bond prices have collapsed because of these high interest rates, and that because bond prices had collapsed and the value of the bonds that these funds held, they had to liquidate some of their precious metals holdings. I don't know. We have no idea to what extent that affected the price. Other people are saying that that it could have had something to do with the end of the quarter. Big funds rebalancing their books. September 30th is obviously the end of the third quarter, and even more people believe that this is a sign that we could be seeing a major, big correction and crash in the general markets and in the economy, okay? And that's why we're talking silver and gold going mainstream. Guys, that's absolutely when it's going to happen. When things get really hairy this time around, that's when people are going to go running to silver and gold. And it's going to be a happy day for those of us who have endured days like yesterday. That I shared this with you yesterday. To me, yesterday was one of the most painful, angering days that I've endured in decades as a silver investor. I mean, it just was the biggest kick in the coconuts that I think anyone who owns physical silver could have endured, or anyone who watches the market. So when this system when the system gets put under much duress, which is coming, okay, and we're going to talk about why it's coming, that's when people will go running to the precious metals. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. What happened during the C-19 crisis? People ran to precious metals. What happened during the little banking crisis back in March and April this year? People ran to precious metals. People are going to run to precious metals again. It's going to happen. And it's going to be way more extreme than probably anything we've seen in the past. Because don't forget, guys, there is hardly anybody amongst us Americans, anyway, who invest in silver and gold. But it's much different around the world. And we're going to talk about that also. We got a lot more to talk about in this video. I need your thumbs up. Okay? It keeps my spirits up. You want me to have high spirits? I understand. You probably understand too. This has been a browbeating for us, especially yesterday, but the last few years. Let's get our spirits up. If you press the thumbs up, and that helps get the word out to other people, and it's free to do. What the heck? Let's take a look. The U.S. debt clock. The website is www.usdebtclock.org. I've been getting a ton of questions about what's going on with the debt clock. They did make some changes. Let's talk about this debt situation. Here's some I pulled a couple interesting stats for you. Right now, for every U.S. citizen, there is $100,000 in debt. For every worker, if you still work, if you still have a job, guess what? You have 200, your share of the national debt, congratulations, is only $250,000, 250,000. Hey, that's not bad. Oh, I forgot to warn you. Guys. If you, because you're in charge of you, that's why it's called YouTube. If you do decide later, after you listen to this live stream, to go look at the U.S. debt clock website, make sure, when you get on an airplane and they have those little bags in case you get sick while you're flying, make sure you have one of those next to you, because you are going to get sick when you look at the U.S. debt clock and what is going on in this country. U.S. GDP is about $30 trillion per year, okay? The total U.S. debt is $100 trillion. That's all debt, government debt, corporate debt, personal debt. Guys, we have 3 times as much debt in this country as we do GDP. Okay, now we're going to talk about a famous hedge fund manager. One of you think everybody thinks, oh, Warren Buffett. And look, not taking anything away from Warren Buffett, but there's other people out there who really are smarter than Warren Buffett. And we're going to talk about one of those in a minute in regards to a dire prediction that he's making. And it has to do with what we are talking about right now, the U.S. debt situation. Everybody's all up in arms on the U.S. Thank you, Silver Star, for the for the super chat. That's awesome. Much appreciated. When it comes to the debt clock, the dollar to silver ratio, there's a bunch of boxes, the dollar to silver ratio, which is at 0 right now. Now, I've explained this several times. The reason why it's at 0 is because it measures the change in M2 money supply, which is all the money that's in the economy, and it divides that by the number of ounces that have been mined, okay? So the M2 money supply has been shrinking, so that's 0. That's why that shows at 0. However, when you look at a 5-year average, okay, and you divide the growth in money, that's all the money in the economy, the M2 money over the last 5 years, divide that by the growth in silver supply that's been added, right, that's been mined, that 850 million ounces a year, you get a dollar to silver ratio over $1,500 per ounce. Hey, thank you for all those thumbs up. I got to ring the bell 10 times. All right. So be sure you have a barf bag when you go look at the U.S. debt clock. It's sickening. I'm sorry. I don't know how you feel about it, but the fact that our leaders have led us down this path and led our children and grandchildren down this path is nauseating, to say the least. But what does a top hedge fund manager, and not just top, thank you, Jim. Wow, another awesome super chat. Help out the king of the basement dwellers. That's right. We are the basement dwellers. I forgot to tell you that. Right now, you're listening and watching, and you are a basement dweller. We're trying to figure out what's going on out there, and what are we hearing from a top hedge fund manager? A dire warning. Ray Dalio started Bridgewater Capital. He's one of the smartest financial minds in the world, bar none, okay? This guy's smarter than Warren Buffett, smarter than Charlie Munger, smarter than any of these, supposed gurus that are out there. Ray Dalio's smart, and here's what he had to say. He said basically, we are heading towards a debt crisis. Let me pull this up for you. This is worth listening to. Bear with me. We're dealing with technology. I'll sing. Here we go. Ray Dalio says I'll start over. Ray Dalio says the United States is going to have a debt crisis. Okay? He says it's a risky U.S. fiscal situation. He says, quote, we're going to have a debt crisis in this country. Okay? How fast it transpires, I think, is going to be a function of that supply-demand issue. So I'm watching that very closely. He's talking about the bonds. Guys, this is Ray Dalio. Okay, he's a born, like most of us here that are here today. Some of you are joining from other places around the world, which is awesome. But Ray is an American through and through, self-made man. And he is absolutely saying that we are going to have a major debt crisis in this country. When we talk about silver and gold going mainstream, everybody, your grandma, your uncles, your brothers and sisters that could care less about silver and gold right now, they're going to be asking you about silver and gold. I think that's a very likely scenario as we head out into the coming, let's say, year to 3 to 4 years. It is not looking good. There are big black clouds on the horizon, okay? Not to mention, I don't know why this popped into my mind, but I'll say it. We got a crazy, crazy year ahead of us just politically alone in this country with this presidential election that's coming up. It's going to be absolutely off the hooks crazy. And when it happens, when everybody wakes up to what Ray Dalio, think about this. Ray Dalio made billions of dollars by being able to see into the future. And isn't that what we do anytime you make an investment, Okay, you're making the investment in the present moment, but you're attempting to look into the future. You're walking down a dark path, right? But you're taking your flashlight and turning it on and trying to look ahead and trying to position yourself so that you can at minimum preserve the wealth, the money you're investing, or possibly even profit from it. And who has done better than Ray Dalio? Not me. I'm sure to say, I mean, no offense, but probably not you either. Ray Dalio, basically started with nothing and has runs Bridgewater Capital, one of the biggest, most respected hedge funds in the world. And when Ray doesn't have a flashlight. You and me, we have a flashlight. We try to see what's going to happen in the future. Ray's got a floodlight, a couple floodlights. Like when you go to a high school football game and they flip the lights on at night and the whole field lights up? Well, Ray's got one of those. And what Ray sees is a debt crisis. Let that sink in. Think about all that, what I just said. The smartest guy, the guy who has a pretty good record of being able to predict what's going to happen in the future, is saying we are headed for big, big trouble. Okay. Now, do you feel like skeptical when I say that gold and silver could go mainstream? Because it's certainly not mainstream now in the United States. And when I say mainstream, I mean opposite of how it is now. Instead of us being the black sheep that are cast off to the side, everybody is joining us as fans of silver and gold because they're scared. They woke up, right, to the fact that the system and the amount of debt is untenable, and now they're afraid that their paper money is going to lose value. Talk to the people in Venezuela. Talk to the people in Argentina. Okay, talk to old people that lived through or read the history books about what happened in Germany. It happens, okay? And to us, it seems so bizarre to think, because all of us during our lifetimes, gold in particular was either illegal to own, and then in 1974 it became legal to own gold. However, in 1971, we got taken off the gold standard. And anything to do with silver or gold was discriminated against, is a good way to say it. Here in the United States, people were dissuaded away from investing in precious metals, because when they divorced the dollar from gold and they took silver out of the coinage, right? They didn't want silver and gold to do well. It became a competitor. It was like a divorce, right? It's like if there's a duo and they divorce, they don't want the other party necessarily usually to do well. It is a zero-sum game. So when I talk about silver and gold going mainstream, it doesn't seem possible. It doesn't seem real. But are we getting signs? And we're going to talk later about major retailers that are giving us signs about silver and gold going mainstream. But let's just take a broader view of the world. I mean, up until 1971 in the United States, gold was pretty important. It was backed our money. Up until 1933, when Roosevelt made it illegal, gold was pretty important. People held gold, people held silver to maintain their value. And guess what? Like our President Joe Biden likes to say, it worked. Okay? The United States, did incredibly well when we were on the gold standard and silver standard. Sure, there were some hard times, but overall, it worked. We did pretty well. Maybe somebody should whisper that to our current leaders in Washington. But what does it mean when we look at the rest of the world in terms of silver and gold being mainstream? I want to read you a list of countries, and I want you to think about silver and gold. China, India, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Japan. What do we know about all those countries, right? Well, you know the story. There's 1.4 billion people in China. They love gold. There's 1.4 billion people in India. Guess what? They love gold and silver, and the Chinese love their silver as well. We know that Russia is one of the world's biggest producers of gold and buyers of gold. Saudi Arabia, they love gold. Germans love gold. Even the German central banker over the last year at one point said it's a great way to restructure the balance sheets of the European central banks could be with a gold revaluation. Because guess what? All those countries in Europe, those central banks, what do they hold? Gold. What is that telling us? Think about it, guys. All right? What about Japan? What about Japan? Do you know that right now in Japan there is a gold frenzy? A gold frenzy. And when I talk about gold, you know I'm talking about silver. Silver's the first cousin to gold. But there's a gold frenzy right now in Japan. Right now, as we're talking, Japan. Right? Why, you might ask? Because their government spent too much money, printed too much money, and guess what? The Japanese people are waking up. And they're like, oh, the yen is becoming worthless. Maybe I should buy a real asset. Maybe I should buy gold. But what's the lesson that Americans, when we talk about gold going mainstream, what's the lesson for us, right? Japan and the United States are very much allied in many ways, right? The lesson, guys, is that can happen here, okay? There could be a gold frenzy here. Now, and we got more doom and gloom to talk about, but I just want to go right into this because there's something weird, my spidey sense. You know, like when you get a feeling and you can't quite put your fingers on it? Well, my spidey sense with all of this crazy coverage, if I see it one more time, it'll make me have to use that same barf bag I have to use when I look at the US debt clock, but in a good way. Costco selling gold. I mean, every major news outlet is covering this story. Fortune magazine, I think the most recent one I saw was Barron's, is talking about the gold frenzy at Costco and how they can't keep gold in stock on their website. People are crazy. There's something strange about that. That my fourth sense, or whatever you want to call it, right, is telling me that very well could be the canary in the coal mine about what is going to happen here in the United States. A sign of things to come, right? That people in America actually are waking up. Now, of course, some of these articles are point out that, gold is only bought by tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists who like to stack a little extra food in their basement and blah, blah, blah. But nonetheless, to me, it tells us about what we can expect as we head through what's going to be. There's going to be a debt crisis. Ray Dalio himself, the founder of Bridgewater Capital, is sounding the alarms. You know, here. Oh, you know what? Here. Did you hear that? That's Ray Dalio saying, shaking America, wake up, guys. And I've also heard that Ray Dalio has 10% of his wealth where? In gold. You know, and what does that mean? What it means for gold is what it means for silver. Is the Fed done raising rates? Nobody kills or has been the enemy of the silver price and the gold price over the last 2 years as the Federal Reserve. And everybody's calling their bluff now, right? Well, we are, the basement dwellers. We know, like, they can't do anything else. We had some interesting messaging from the Fed this week. And I'd warned you guys, we had 6 Fed speakers, but in that this week could prove very challenging for the silver price and the gold price. But listen to this from Bloomberg. Our friends at Bloomberg had this to say. A rebound in U.S. stocks and treasuries lost steam after the head of the Federal Reserve Bank in New York said that the U.S. central bank should leave interest rates high, quote unquote, for some time. Okay? He said basically, but this is where it gets interesting, quote, My current assessment is that we are at or near the peak level of the target range for the federal funds rate. That means he thinks they're done raising rates. Okay? That's the Fed saying that. That they're saying they think they're done. Maybe, but then everyone says, but they're saying they're going to hold them longer, hold them higher for longer. Don't believe what the Fed says. This is the same Fed that told you inflation was transitory, inflation was temporary, right? That we were never going to have another recession. The Fed has over the last 20 years a very solid history of being wrong or do you think maybe those people at the Fed don't tell the truth all the time? You know, the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. Why are we even? Let me back up. The Fed. Let's finish on this point. The Fed is communicating to the market that they're either at or maybe they're going to raise rates one more time. I don't think they are. Okay. That's what the Fed is communicating. The Fed is getting scared. If the Fed thought that they had room to be even more aggressive, if they had room to do anything real, they would be talking that up. Whatever the Fed's talking is always an exaggeration. And right now their talking is tough, right? So it's an exaggeration, right? If that's the biggest exaggeration they can make is that we're at or near peak interest rates, guys, I think, maybe I'm just an eternal optimist, but I think the sun's going to come back out in terms of a supportive macro environment for the silver price, for the gold price, and for the inflation. I'm sorry, the inflation price. What the heck's the inflation price? The platinum price. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Last month, the Dow was down 5%. What is that telling us? The 10-year bond rate rose from 4% to 4.6%. I looked last night. The 10-year bond is at 4.6%. Real estate is, I was talking, okay, I forgot I can share this with you guys. I was having a discussion with a senior manager who works at one of the large financial service companies here in St. Louis and happens to work in the mortgage division of that company. And trust me, you would know the name of this company. And I asked him, just casually, this was a 2-minute conversation, but I said, I hear mortgage. He doesn't really know what I do, and he's a great guy, but and I know him on a casual friend basis. I said, I hear the mortgage business is slowing down. He was like, oh my God. He's like, you wouldn't believe it. And he works in risk management within that sector. He said, it's crazy how things have basically stopped at this point. The housing market, right, the real estate market is in big trouble in this country. Yeah, people say, oh, prices are still going up. That's just because nobody can sell. Nobody can move. Everybody's trapped, right? First, they locked everybody down during the C-19 crisis. Now they're locking everybody down into their houses because nobody could move, right? If you have a mortgage at 3%, are you going to move to a bigger house, right, which is going to cost a lot more? Plus, you're going to need to be paying an interest rate, which is probably twice as high as what. No, nobody's going to move. It's getting ugly out there, guys. Getting absolutely ugly. There was this great article, though, that there are some people who are doing great because of this housing issue we have, and those are people who are looking to downsize. Welcome to modern America, where the only people who benefit are the people who want less, right? Who knows? Maybe that's a good thing in the long run for the country. Maybe we've gone a little bloated here in the United States. I haven't seen the latest news yet, but apparently there's 100% chance that we're going to have a government shutdown this weekend. And I was laughing. I was like, I thought the government was already shut down. Are we going to tell a difference when the government shut down? No offense. Like I said yesterday, there's some people that actually work hard and do a great job, but are we really going to notice when the government shuts down? I mean, come on, man. But from an economic perspective, we've got the UAW strike. What does that mean when we have these different factors, right? The auto workers not working right now, government workers not getting paid, already a constricting situation in the economy. And don't forget, right? This is a key, okay? That nobody talks about much anymore, but we're going to bring it up. We're going to remember it from time to time. When the Federal Reserve raised rates at the fastest pace in history over the last probably 19 months now, that was the fastest pace of interest rate hikes. You got to remember one thing. Those interest rate hikes have a lag effect. It's like when you take antibiotics and your doctor says it's going to take a couple of weeks for this to start working, to have an effect. Well, with interest rate hikes, it takes 6 months to a year. We are still right in the heat of more and more delayed effects from those interest rate hikes hitting the U.S. economy right now. Right at the same time that the consumer is tapped out because of inflation, right? They have record credit card debt. They have no savings, right? Just at the same time where people, oh my gosh, are going to have to start paying back their student loans. That's going to be sucking money out of the economy. All of this is coming to a head. This fourth quarter could be crazy interesting. Super Mario, man, super chat. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate your humbleness and you genuinely care about helping. Well, thank you, Super Mario. Thank you. I'll touch on that a little bit more in a second. Thank you. But all of this is coming together right at the same time. And don't forget, right, like Ray Dalio said, when everybody wakes up, when everybody realizes that we've got a debt crisis that is a big issue, right? When it becomes big news, and it will, it's mathematically impossible that it doesn't. People are going to freak. And remember what happened over in Japan. People in Japan weren't crazy about gold 2 years ago, and they just had this long period of time where their government printed money and just used printed money to buy bonds, and it was like a big unicorn fart dust party over there for the Japanese. Everything was fine. And then suddenly everybody woke up, and now everybody in Japan is buying gold. That is the exact same thing that could happen here in the United States. They're saying consumers are done for Christmas. This Christmas season will be very, very interesting. Let me read this to you. This is from UBS analyst Jay Sole. He said, quote, "What we found is that consumers are really feeling cautious. They're worried about things like having to repay student loans, and as a result, they're thinking that they're going to pull back on spending, especially on discretionary items like apparel, footwear, and accessories. And we think that's going to be a headwind for stock prices." Yeah, everything is not good, guys. Okay, be prepared mentally, monetarily. Okay, if you want to get some metal, go check out Pimbex. They're the sponsor of Ron's Basement. They're an online bullion dealer where you can get yourself gold, silver, platinum. They're trustworthy. I've worked with them, and they have the best prices around. Hold on, Susie's yelling at me. I need to turn on the walkie-talkie and see what she's saying. That, and I was having a coughing attack. Let's see what Susie's up to. Do you need me?
Cowbell time.
Oh, cowbell. Thank you. Hey, guys, we got 200 thumbs up. It's time for me to ring the cowbell. That was Susie from Command Central upstairs. Oh, brother, I tell you what, the fun never ends here. Super Mario, we appreciate your humbleness and that you genuinely care about humanity. Yeah, I do. I'm mad. I imagine a lot of you are mad as well that we are in this situation. It's uncalled for. You know, it's no different than what you do on a personal level every day, right? You're forced to spend less, to live within your means. And these, I have no other way to call them, and it's not just now, it's gone on for decades, irresponsible leadership that we have in Washington has put not just you and not just me into a difficult situation, but your children and your grandchildren. And it didn't have to be that way. I was talking with my friend Sean Williamson. Okay, I talk about him from time to time. He's a self-made multi-millionaire, a published and accomplished author, musician, CPA, all types of things. And we were talking about, I want you to think about this. Sorry, keep coughing today. I want you to think about this for 1 second, okay? The last 50 years, let's say 1970 to 2020, that 50-year period, the United States had it pretty darn good in the world, right? We ruled the roost, to put it very generally speaking. Sure, we had some challenges, everything else, but the reality, we ruled the roost. And they destroyed our currency during that period, okay? Now, Sean and I were talking. Fast forward to the next 50 years. We'll knock out 2020 to 2023 and just make believe they didn't happen, because you know the uber insanity that's gone on fiscally and monetarily during that period. But fast forward to today and think about the next 50 years. Susie's calling me on the walkie. Yes.
I was asking the viewers if they had a question, and someone does. They asked if you were to go back to the gold standard, wouldn't the precious metal prices go down?
Okay, thank you. No. Well, let me get to that question. That's a great question. But first, the next 50 years, think about the next 50 years. Will the general environment be as agreeable for the United States? I don't think so. You know what's going on with BRICS. You know what's going on geopolitically in the world. You know, geopolitically and financially, there's a big move towards de-dollarization, period. Okay, now Susie, my wife, was kind enough to call me on the walkie-talkie. How do you guys like these walkie-talkies? Anyway, since she locks me in the basement, thank you very much. So the super chats are much appreciated because I'm able to get food delivered. They bring it to the window down here. Anyway, would going back onto the gold standard really have a negative impact? No, absolutely not. You know, and the numbers are out there, but if you were to back the dollar with gold now, I think the number's like 50,000. Either 50 or 50, regardless, it doesn't matter, right? And we likely won't go back to a full-blown gold standard in this world, but what we could, there's two things to consider, interesting things to consider on that question. Number one is, could we go to a system that's tethered to gold? And I mean by that, like an anchor is on the bottom of the ocean, right? That tethers the boat, can float around. Could we see a situation where where world currencies are backed maybe at a 10 or 20% basis with gold? Yes, we could. Do I think that's going to happen? I think that's possible, but I wouldn't even say likely. But here's the good news. You want some good news? I believe this in the bottom of my heart about silver, gold, and platinum, that we are already still on a gold standard right now as we speak, okay? You may not agree with me on that, but I firmly believe that right now we are still on a gold standard. I can convert my paper money into gold. Somebody said that the other night. They said, isn't it like magic? You can turn paper into gold. You can turn paper, right? Where is it? I used to have a $2 bill down here. It must have flown away. What does that tell you? Where'd my $2 bill go? Gosh darn it. Oh, man. Oh, here it is. You can turn this into silver, right? 1/10 of an ounce, depending on what the Crimex does to the price. But even more interesting is to consider, right? Yeah, so I believe, right, that we are still on this gold standard, that money is still backed by gold. You can, I mean, you say whatever you want. I mean, look, what did an ounce of gold cost 30 years ago? What does it cost now in terms of dollars, right? It's still there. It's the real money. It's the base. It's not going anywhere. And it's not just me. I'm telling you guys, you know the Federal Reserve. What if somebody at the Federal Reserve themselves said that very same thing? How would you feel about that? Would that make sense? Well, he did. His name was John Exter. He was an economist at the Federal Reserve. I believe it was the New York Fed, and he wrote extensively throughout his entire career that no matter how you slice it, no matter how you dice it, right, at the end of the day, silver and gold are still the base of all money. Okay, period. You can make Bitcoin, you can make dollars, you can make euros, you can make all this made up stuff. It's all made up. But at the base of it all, silver and gold are the base of the money system. Look, that's why we hold it, right? That's why I invest in precious metal gold mining companies. That's why I hold some silver. You know, I keep it at a safe location, but I like to hold some silver because I believe, you know, that it is the base of all money. Always has been and always will be. Just I want you to think about this for a second. If you're somebody who has made the decision to store value in precious metals, you've got to think about this for a second. Imagine a pile of silver at your house, right? Like a pile, right? And then imagine a pile of paper money, a pile, okay? And it's paper, guys. Or imagine a pile of Bitcoin. Or imagine a pile of bank statements saying you have X amount of whatever. Which is real? Which, if you look at those two piles and you think out 50 years into the future, 20 years into the future, which do you think is going to maintain its value? Which do you think is going to have value at that time? I don't think that to me, and that's why, you know, days like yesterday were absolutely horrible. The silver market got absolutely clobbered. I mean, are you serious, man? I can't believe it. You know, I am crabby when I wake up in the morning. I'm crabby a lot of the times. Anyway, but I walked by and Susie was at the computer upstairs and she said, "You've got 5 minutes to get to the basement." And then she said, "And silver's up 4%. And I'm like, 4%? In my mind, I'm thinking that's like almost $1. Silver was up $1 yesterday morning. And I'm like, cool. All right. I mean, our time has come, and there was we didn't even talk about this. I thought it was the inflation numbers, and I mean, the smoke and mirror inflation numbers, whatever it was. I don't know. And I came downstairs and I'm like, all right, this is great. Silver's doing well. Guys, in a matter of an hour and a half, silver dropped by like 6.5%. Look at a chart. It's disgusting. It makes no sense. And you're going to tell me, right, when we talk about having a pile of silver in your house, right, wherever you're sitting right now, look over there to your left. Imagine a pile of silver and a pile of paper. Deutschmarks, euros, yen, yuan, I don't care what it is. Imagine a pile of bank statements, a pile of IOU. I mean, it's paper, okay? And you're going to tell me that what happened yesterday in the silver market really, really happened? Yeah, I know. Sure, that's the price, right? Keith Neumeyer calls that price discovery. You know, we're going to have a new method of price discovery come online probably the next 5 years, maybe the next year, Maybe it'll take 10 years. We don't know, right? Stuart Englert, who wrote the book Rigged, right? Great author. He knows more about what goes on in the silver market than anybody. He said, we've been waiting for 15 years, but that price discovery is coming, okay? Look at what Keith Neumeyer, he said it. You know, the price discovery mechanism is screwed. So what did he do? Right? One of the biggest silver mining companies in the world. We all need to be applauding Keith Neumeyer, because you know what Keith Neumeyer did? He started his own darn mint, so that eventually, right, he possibly could sell all the silver that his company mines directly to the retail community. And I don't know his plans. I don't know if he plans on selling it through other bullion dealers. Maybe he'll let me sell it. Me and Coin Shop Chris, huh? Right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, but he's taking that silver off the electronic market. The Chinese are calling for the same thing, right? I saw multiple Chinese state television interviews with these Chinese guys at the smelters, and they're like, "We need more silver. We need more silver." They're like, "It's crazy the way, you know, we need silver price to be higher so that we can get more silver. There's not enough silver." They're yelling. They're upset, and they made fun of the United States. They said, how can the price of silver be determined by interest rates and by, it makes no sense, right? And it makes no sense to us either. But the day's going to come when silver and gold and platinum are mainstream, when your neighbors are asking you about it, right? When your coworkers are asking you about it. When you're at Thanksgiving dinner, and I know you're like me, you just keep your mouth shut. I don't like to frustrate myself. I don't never, ever bring it up, okay? But your family members are going to start asking you, like, aren't you into silver? How do you get that? Where do you're going to become the source of information. Unfortunately, what's going to happen when it gets to that point is there's not going to be any available, all right? That's why, if things play out the way that we're looking at them right now, it's a good idea to get some silver. I need to mention my other sponsor, right? They make this possible, First Mining Gold. You know, the same story is true for gold as well. Dan Wilton, the CEO, does an unbelievable good job steering First Mining Gold into the future. Right now, they've got 2 5 million ounce gold projects in Canada, one in Quebec, one in Ontario, but they've also got 4 other projects, one of which they own outright, one of which they own 15% of, and the other 2 are in the process. They partnered them out with other companies that are exploring on those properties. Look, mining stocks are risky, but if you're a contrarian investor, it's not just First Mining Gold, it's any of the junior development exploration companies. Their prices have gotten to a point where they represent what appears to be a very good value proposition. But do your own research. I think First Mining, it's a stock I've owned, right? I only talk about stocks that I own, and I've owned First Mining for years, and I happen to think that the future looks very bright for what's going on there. Hey, thank you for that super chat, Julie. Yeah, we need encouragement, Julie. It's not easy on many levels being a silver stacker, right? It's like the system is stacked against us. Pardon the pun, but it really is. The media is against us. That's mostly just in the United States. We got to remember that as well. But yeah, the system is stacked against us, and we're talking about not pleasant subjects. The national debt is not pleasant. I didn't even talk about, let's talk about social issues. Do you see what's gone on in Philadelphia over the last week? Mobs of kids, like, just breaking into streets full of stores, stealing everything. There's like law and order is breaking down in the United States. These are not what I would call pleasant subjects for us to talk about. Not to mention the fact that as a silver and gold stacker, we have been marginalized in this country. That's a good word. I'll have to remember that. Marginalized, pushed out to the margin, right? Like the black sheep, right? Because the government doesn't want citizens to own silver and gold. They want you to own paper because it's been such a great investment since I was born in 1970, right? The dollar's lost what? Who know? I don't really know, but I'd say probably 60% of its value, right? But that's what the government wants. They want that dollar. They got to keep that dollar machine running. It's hard to be a person on the margins, right? If I got a big family picnic coming up in October. Big family reunion picnic, right? And I know, and I joke around a lot, but some of my family, I can hear it already. Like, oh yeah, you're into silver and gold, whatever. Like, yeah, I am. I don't really care, I'm to the point where I know what I believe and I'm willing to stand up for it. But no doubt, being a stacker is a very we're not following the crowd. And we're standing up for what we believe in. And the other thing for us to remember, right? I consider myself a patriot. I'm not a political guy. I'm not a Democrat. I think for myself. And let me say that as well. Boy, I'm going to preach now. We got a big election coming up. I'm not encouraging people to vote Democratic or vote Republican. I'm encouraging people to think for themselves, right? Think for yourself and make up your own mind. Don't let any media or anything else try to think for yourself. Don't try, do think for yourself. And the other thing I want to say when it comes to silver and gold in particular, yeah, we're marginalized, right? Oh, why would you, I let somebody hold my 10-ounce bar the other day. He's like, this is cool. He's like, but why would you? I don't understand. And, don't forget, okay? The men and women, because there's always women involved as well, but the men who founded this country were huge, huge fans of silver and gold, right? These people that we're taught about, and if we do our own research on, were really outstanding people looking out for the future of citizens in this country, right? Liberty and freedom. They were huge fans of silver and gold, okay? So, you are a patriot. I am a patriot. We'll stand up for what we believe in, and I'll see everybody soon. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the moderators. I'll see you soon.